Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. So happy to be back here. Even though we had a really good weekend and didn't want it to end, it's just awful nice to be back here in front of this microphone and getting to spend time with you. Second hour, Father Sam Keys will be here with us. First hour, and we'll do Ask a Priest with Father Sam Keys. First hour, we're going to talk with our good friend Simone Rizcala about the feminine genius. But before we get into all of that, I do want to thank everybody who came to the conference. The conference, I thought, was a smashing success. Our keynote speaker, Sister Regina Marie Gorman, I don't think I've ever heard a room like that room when she was speaking. You could have heard a pin drop. She was so good. Then Dr. Scott Hahn, a fantastic talk. Dr. Logan Gage from Franciscan University, Dale Ahlquist, Dr. Francis Beckwith from Baylor University, and then all of our guys. It was a lot of fun. We had a really good time. And if you came, thank you very, very much for coming. And in a particular way, I want to thank Cowboy, who brought 24 donuts to the conference. That's the way you come to a conference. You bring 24 donuts with you for the host. The number here is 888-318-7884 if you'd like to talk about the Catholic Church's view of women, of womanhood, of femininity. This whole hour is for you. 888-318-7884. Simone Rizcala, as I said, is our guest. She's the Director of Program Growth at Endow, which educates women toward a more profound understanding of their own God-given dignity through study in small communities of faith and friendship. Simone, it's nice to see you again.
Cy, it's so good to be back. I've missed you, and I'm so sad I missed the conference this year.
You know what? It's weird though. They put you in a video there. I think they were just trying to make us look good. Yeah, the video guys, they made a commercial for Catholic Answers, and you were a prominent part of it.
That's so fun. That's so fun.
Yeah.
I love my Catholic Answers family, so I'm honored.
Especially because everything goes so smoothly with our audio-visual connections. I think that's... They were working so hard in here to get this straight, and they literally got it correct 4 seconds before the music started to play. So that was
masculine genius.
The masculine genius was struggling here a little bit. But I want to, if I may, we're going to talk the whole hour about the feminine genius. But the last time you were on, you talked with us about Armenia. Your family is Armenian, part of the Armenian diaspora that followed the genocide of Armenians.
Yes.
And it's very, very concerning what's going on there. Do you want to give us any update or just tell people maybe where they can turn if they want to be helpful to our brothers and sisters in the oldest Christian country in the world?
Yes. Thanks so much for asking about Armenia, because just 4 or 5 days ago, actually, after what has been a 10-month blockade from Azerbaijan to this Armenian Christian enclave called the Nagorno-Karabakh, also known as Artsakh. These Christians have been are being ethnically and religiously cleansed. The International Court of Justice has called it a genocide. And in the midst of that 10 months on the brink of starvation, just last week, Azerbaijan took military action against civilians and the people of Artsakh. That happened last week. In 24 hours, Artsakh surrendered because you can't starve people for almost a year and then they can't defend themselves. So this so-called ceasefire agreement that's going on now is not exactly, it's very complicated, but long story short, there are now 500 people who've died from that military aggression, and they have clearly stated that they will go after Armenia proper, and the Azeris are referring to Armenia proper as Western Azerbaijan, which is their plan, their goal to completely eradicate all Armenians and all Christians from that region, creating one big pan-Turkic Islamic region. So that's very intense. Thanks for letting me share that. Please pray for the Armenians right now and for the Christians there. And if you'd like to keep updated on what's going on there and find out ways to post on your social media, to pray, to learn more, please go to thephilos.org/Save Armenia, sign up for the newsletter, and you can learn how to help the world's first official Christians, as you mentioned, Cy.
Yeah, the first nation to be even before the Roman Empire was Christian. Armenia was Christian. There's lots of, we want to be delicate and careful in the way we speak about things, but the history of Christian countries surrounded by Muslim countries in that region of the world is not one that inspires a great deal of confidence that Armenia will be left alone and left to flourish as a Christian country. So pray for the Armenians and help the Armenians if you can.
Thank you so much, Sai. Yeah, people can be listening to this and say, oh, that's Christian bias. But the mayor of Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, said in 2005 to a German audience, we want to completely eradicate all Armenians. You did the same thing with the Jews in the 1930s and 40s, so you should be able to understand us, right? We're not making that up. That's a quote in public record.
Yeah. It's not good when you're like, well, the Nazis did it, so, it's...
Yeah.
That's never a good look. And
it's not a good look.
No, deadly serious stuff. So prayers for Armenia, and give the website one more time, and then we'll talk about the feminine genius.
Thank you so much. philosproject.org/Save Armenia.
Simone, what you do in your everyday life is educate women in the teaching of the Catholic Church, and isn't the teaching of the Catholic Church? Really, don't we have a lot to be ashamed of as far as our oppression of women throughout history?
Well, I wouldn't quite put it like that.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that, Si.
Well, I sometimes try to be provocative in the question to allow you to.
I know. It was very, very provocative. I would say the feminist movement is the one that has a lot to be ashamed of in terms of what they've done for women, for children, for families. I was just listening to Carrie Gress recently, who wrote a book recently called The End of Woman. And she talks about all the totalitarian regimes that killed millions and millions of people in the 20th century. But abortion, which is a fruit of the feminist movement, has killed much more people and children than any totalitarian regime has. So that's just something to keep in mind when we talk about the church oppressing women.
Well, Jesus was an extraordinary person in every way, of course, being the divine man, but it was extraordinary just as a historical figure, even if you didn't have faith in Jesus as the divine man, because at a time of a very, very kind of strict separation between men and women and very limited roles for women, he just kind of ignored all that.
He did, in a very countercultural, radical way. I mean, the whole conversation and debate about woman, that being on the table at all, is because of Christianity. It was Christianity. It was Jesus who really reminded humanity and women of their dignity. I mean, a Jewish man in the first century, dining with women, talking with women, educating women, having women as his disciples and followers, the early church so much being influenced by women. That's a very radical, very countercultural at the time idea. The idea that women had dignity, that women weren't property but persons. Those are all Christian ideas. Those are Christian concepts. So we should be very proud of the church for liberating women, actually.
And how has the church done in this modern era? Let's say that in the time since the sexual revolution of the 60s, how has the church done in teaching about and encouraging the dignity, the appreciation of the dignity of women?
Well, I think what's so fascinating to me is that the birth control pill, which is so much what caused this, progressive, rapid feminist movement and sexual revolution. I mean, if you look at the statistics today, women are more depressed and unhappy than ever. Didn't feminist ideology promise so much liberation and joy for women? And yet women are the most depressed demographic. So, I mean, you can argue ideas, but the reality is that the statistics show, sociology shows, that women are not at all nowhere near as happy as they could be or should be, and we can really tie that to the feminist movement and the sexual revolution.
And then, of course, in that same period, we had the teaching on human sexuality that came from the Vatican, particularly Pope John Paul II. A lot of that is what you teach, is what it was, I guess, the Pope John Paul's response to the sexual revolution.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the UN just met, I think, also last week, big week last week. And again, abortion, it was, the phrasing of the meeting was so insane to me. Something about the enjoyment of women and girls for reproductive rights, and I thought, yeah, that's enjoyable, interesting. So wanting to, again, make reproductive rights and abortion international law, right? This is and it was part of this conversation about like, pandemic, preparedness, right? And the best way to prepare for a pandemic is, abortion rights. And so it was that same motivation that got John Paul II to write his letter to women in 1995, the abortion issue, out of a love for and a respect for women, knowing that abortion is a great violator of women's dignity and of the family. And when we look at the statistics today about the epidemic of loneliness, and the social contagion of the trans movement, I mean, so much of that is tied to the breakdown of the family. And the breakdown of the family is something that John Paul II obviously was very concerned with, and Pope Paul VI before him in his writing Humanae Vitae, where he basically said, if the world embraces a contraceptive mentality, right, if we allow a contraceptive mentality where we are separating procreation from marriage, this is going to lead to a lot of social ills, divorce, abortion, promiscuity, and a general degradation of the dignity of women. Those were all prophetic words in the 1960s, but now we actually have the social science and the sociology and all the data to back up the prophetic words of Pope Paul VI.
Yeah.
So how is this good for women?
Right. It's like the Pope said this is what's going to happen, and then this is what happened. And so you get a sense that, there must be some wisdom there. I mean, if you have a record like that if you said in I think it was 69, was it? Or 68?
1968, yeah.
68, that this is what will happen if you do this. And then it happened. Well, that would seem to give some credibility to what the church has to say on this.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting, Cy? My sister is a marriage and family therapist, and one of the things that she's putting together are workshops. So most parishes, I don't know the statistic for this, but if we're going to talk new evangelization and women and family and all that, most parishes don't offer support for marriages. And yet the statistics show that most people who leave the faith leave it because of broken families. Like your solid, happy family unit, the happiness of your family and your parents in particular, so much is tied to your personal faith. Which makes sense, right? It's logical, right?
Right.
So one way to counteract or remedy the sexual revolution is then to really support on a parish level the marriages, right? Because happy marriages produce happy families, and happy families, happy children, and faithful children, right? So this is a very, very practical way that we can support women, families, and children, and also faith, because faith can't just remain on an intellectual level, it has to be something experienced, something that is enjoyed, that theology comes to life.
888-318-7884 is the number. Is the term we're using today, feminine genius, talking about the feminine genius, this is a phrase that I know from Pope John Paul II. Is it of his coinage, or did he get it from somebody else? Do you know?
Yeah, it's from him, from Mulieris Dignitatum, his 1988 document on the dignity and vocation of women, and he also says it in Letter to Women. So he uses the phrase feminine genius and also the genius of woman, and he's not talking about it as like a noun, like she's a genius, but the feminine genius being that unique feminine spirit that belongs to woman.
Simone Rizkallah is our guest. We'd love to talk with you. Whatever your genius is, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. Maybe you disagree that Jesus himself or that the Catholic Church has been good for the upholding of the dignity of women and the promotion of the dignity of women. Maybe you'd just like to know more about it. You are welcome to call, whatever it is, whether you are Catholic or not. We're talking about the feminine genius from the Catholic perspective with Simone Rizkallah. 888-318-7884 is the number. Right back with more of that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Come together with Christ and Our Lady. Join the Dominican Friars of the Province of St. Joseph and members of the Confraternity of the Most Holy Rosary from across the country as they celebrate the Most Holy Rosary and grow closer to Christ through His Mother. From the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, the Dominican Rosary Pilgrimage Mass, Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on EWTN TV.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Whew, we're a little bit tired around here because we had the big weekend, but it really went very, very well. I know at some point they'll put it out on the internet, but everyone should see that keynote address from Sister Regina Marie Gorman. Just beautiful. And hey, now that we're back, it's Shield Week at shop.catholic.com. What does that mean? It means that the promo code St. Michael will save you 30% off all Catholic Answers produced products, and we've got more than 500 to choose from. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Shield of Faith is part of the Catholic Answers logo, and so make use of it to get your deals right now at shop.catholic.com. Just all one word, St. Michael, St. Michael. It'll save you 30% right now at shop.catholic.com. Our guest is Simone Rizkallah. She's the Director of Program Development at Endow Ministries, which helps women to study and learn together the Catholic faith. And we were talking about the feminine genius. And then you mentioned to me at the break that there's this letter that the Pope is going to publish October 15th about St. Therese. Maybe you should say something about St. Therese, who every Catholic knows. And she's like the most popular saint of the entire modern Catholic Church. And she seems to be a very unique example of the feminine Jesus in the heart of the Church.
Yeah, she's amazing. And this is like a really special year because it is and this is why Pope Francis is releasing an apostolic letter on St. Therese, because it is the 150th, this is her birthday year, 150 years is her birthday year. And then it's also the 100th anniversary of her beatification. So it's a big year, Sai. So I was especially because Endow is all about getting women to study important documents of the Catholic Church for the cultivation of the feminine genius.
Right.
Contra toxic feminism. I just was so delighted that the year we decided to release a study on St. Therese, that Pope Francis is all, and none of this was planned. We didn't know it was her big beatification year, her Jubilee year. But on October 15th, St. Teresa of Avila, the first female doctor of the Church's feast day, Pope Francis is going to release an apostolic letter on St. Therese. So we're
wonderful. Wonderful. Coming out.
We're super excited.
By the way, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. So the one of the things that, I mean, for example, the fact that the Catholic Church names about half of her, maybe slightly more than half of her churches after women, and that these women are examples in the faith, like this young woman, Therese of Lisieux in France, who became a Carmelite sister. The church is not really opposing the kind of modern liberation of women from what really were and continue to be unjust circumstances, mistreatment within marriage, mistreatment in the workplace, being paid unfairly, or not even having whole areas of the economy unavailable to them. The church is not opposing any of that.
No, not at all. And I think one of the most healing aspects of John Paul II's 1995 pastoral letter to women, a letter that he wrote to all women of the world. And he says that in the letter, I'm speaking directly to the heart of every woman, which is really great because he's not just writing to Catholic women. He's not just writing to Christian women. He's writing to all women because all women have this unique feminine genius. All women, simply by being a woman, have this genius that they have to offer the world, which John Paul II said was vital and essential for a healthy church and a healthy world. In that letter, John Paul II thanks women for being women, women who are wives, women who are mothers, women who are single, women who work, all the various ways in which femininity is expressed in the world. And then he apologizes for all the ways in which Christians went against the gospel of Jesus Christ and have, abused women in various ways or exploited women. And he's not shy. This is John Paul II is anything but not correct. I mean, he's so courageous, that he's not defensive at all. He really does sincerely apologize for circumstances where the church herself may have not treated women with the dignity that she evangelizes. So it's a very healing letter. And if you've been hurt by the church as a woman in particular, and you haven't read this letter, I highly encourage you to read it along with his 1998 document on the dignity and vocation of women. If you want to read it with Endow, you're welcome to.
Which you can find at endow.org. Is that correct?
Endowgroups.org.
Endow Groups. That's what I was going to say. Endowgroups.org. Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yes.
Endow Groups. I always get it right eventually.
I was just going to say it.
Once you correct me. So let me ask you this, though. In a practical way, a woman who embraces the feminine Jesus as proposed, I don't know why I keep saying feminine Jesus, the feminine genius. I love to say the name of Jesus. I'm always happy to proclaim the name of Jesus, but I don't know why I'm mixing it up with the word genius today. So I apologize for that. But if you embrace the Catholic view of the feminine genius, in what way would that be different than just being a feminist? Like, what's the difference between the two?
Well, the word feminism and feminist is very problematic because the ideology and the movements attached to feminism, the ideology of feminine, right, is so much fraught with not really about what it means to be a woman or to help women, but how can women be more like men? That's the idea behind the feminist movement, which is not the Christian one. The Christian woman is not about trying to make women like men. It's about elevating the unique gifts and spirit and genius of women in their own right.
Well, okay, so that would suggest to me that this is connected with and the thing that everybody's talking about all the time now has to be, at least because I listen to National Public Radio, has to be the transgender movement. But there does seem to be a way in which we're so liberated. Like, everybody's got to be liberated from everything now. We're now planning on liberating ourselves from our biological identity, which seems like just another way of enslaving people again, particularly women, saying, well, you can't have women's sports, you can't have women's bathrooms because everybody's a woman now if they want to be.
I know. And one of the feminists' goals is like smash the patriarchy. But what is more patriarchal than like men competing in women's sports? I mean, goodness, where the feminists should be outraged at that, but they aren't. And how can they be if everything is about woke, progressive politics and identity politics? If you can self-determine, or if you can betray your feminine nature, why can't you betray your biological nature, right? This is the genius of Saint Therese, in the sense that there's this humility of what you've been given versus like Nietzsche's will to power. I determine reality, as opposed to I conform to and respect reality.
Steve on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, says the New Testament is kind of hard on women. What do you make of that? There are passages in St. Paul that can seem very, let's say, old-fashioned in a way regarding women. But when you as a woman read the New Testament, does it feel like it's being hard on women to you?
No, I think what was hard on women is the culture that the New Testament was written in, which is that women and children were property, that you belong to either your husband or your father as property, that your husband could commit patricide. If he didn't like the baby that you bore, he'd you could they just get rid of it. Abortion and infanticide rates were skyrocketing, that most of the abortions and infanticides that happened in the Roman Empire are of baby girls because they weren't considered full persons. I think that's being hard on women, not so much what the New Testament proposes. So we have history to really help us understand that Christianity really liberated women, didn't impress them.
That's the thing, is if you don't know history at all, then you could entirely miss what was before Christianity and what is now that Christianity has had its influence for 2,000 years.
Exactly.
We're talking about the feminine genius with Simone Rizkallah, who loves Jesus, which is a different word. 888-318-7884 is the number. Is relativism dead? It sure seems dead. Each day, new moral demands are made, and they are presented to us as absolutes. Everything, from transgender ideology to physician-assisted suicide, is presented as a moral good that all right-thinking people must accept. But Catholic Answer's own Carlo Broussard says look deeper, and you will see today's moralism is just relativism dressed up in new clothes. Carlo's eye-opening book, The New Relativism, shines a light on how the sacred moral teachings of this age cover up a deep denial of moral truth. Order your copy of The New Relativism today at shop.catholic.com and be prepared to defend the truth against aggressive relativism. The New Relativism at shop.catholic.com, or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
In These 12, The Gospel Through the Apostles' Eyes, best-selling author Rod Bennett gives a riveting re-examination of gospel events from the ground floor perspective of Christ's own hand-picked successors. In his trademark storytelling style, Bennett movingly depicts what it was like for the apostles to witness Jesus' teaching and miracles up close. Why did he call them, and what did he intend for them to do? Order your copy of These 12 today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Still recovering from the conference. Just a lot of talking at the conference. And I enjoy it greatly, but I'm one of those people that then needs like 2 months to recharge my batteries. I don't know. You seem more personable than I am, Simone. I don't know if you would need to recharge, but I feel like I just need to sit in a room quietly with a fan on for about 2 months.
That's how I felt last year. I thought, how? Yeah, I did. I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing conference, and I was definitely having FOMO this year. But seeing you and Chris Check and everybody, just all the socializing, you need a week at the spa, Cy.
Oh, that's what I need. I need a week at the spa. That's exactly what I need. I don't know when the last time I got a mani-pedi was. I don't know. Wait, I do know when the last time was. I remember my grandmother clipping my nails when I was 8. That's the last time I got a mani-pedi. 888-318-7884 is the number if you would like to talk about the feminine genius. I said the right thing that time, with Simone Rizkallah, the Director of Program Development for Endow Groups, which you can find at endowgroups.org. A wonderful movement of providing an alternative, really, to the kind of secular feminist offerings, which in many ways, Simone, I got to say, the secular feminist offerings, often to me, they don't. The central problem is not the feminism; it's the kind of individualism that is destructive of everything. Like that it's the church is not saying no to feminism as much as it's saying no, you're part of a community of communities, and the family is one of those, and the natural family is beautiful in a way that it should not be denigrated by self-glorifying individualism. That's my view anyway.
No, I think you're right. It's creepy how the feminist movement has a lot of its origins and expressions in the New Age movement, in the occult, in Marxism. That's like really creepy history. But yes, it is that age-old individualism. It's me versus God thing that is the real heart of the issue. And then
it sets me, if I may, it sets me against everyone. It sets me against my spouse, who I've got to get.
Yes.
I'm not getting enough from my spouse. I'm not getting, the baby is a problem. Everybody's a problem instead of being a gift.
Exactly. And and when the problem is fertility, because fertility is what sets you apart from men, and if we want to be more like men, and that that instead of seeing motherhood, whether it's spiritual or biological, as like this massive gift that generates humanity, both actually perpetuating humanity, and also the spiritual motherhood that generates life in human souls, right? Yeah. To make that the problem when it's the gift is horrible. It's horrifying, actually.
888-318-7884 is the number. Erica is in Maryland. Erica, thank you very much for the call. Go ahead with your question for Simone Rizkallah.
Yeah, hi, how are you? I'm 51, and I just came back to the church after 30-plus years, and I'm just kind of diving in. And
well, welcome home.
Thank you. I was looking at veiling, and it's a small parish. I stay after to do the rosary with, there's maybe 4 or 5 of us, women that do it, and I brought the veiling up to these women because I haven't seen really anyone at all veiling, and kind of got them on board. And so they started doing adoration just once a month, and I said, why don't we start it up for this time of adoration, and then I'm just going to wear it after that. And there was one woman expressed concern over what happens when people ask us why, other women asking why, and being able to have a response that feels, I guess, empowering to them. I was kind of wondering what a response might be that would really appeal to women.
Well, I suppose you can say that it is something that sets you apart, that you can immediately see, and that women are sacred, and that veiling is a sign of that sacredness of woman. That's one way to approach it, but I wouldn't get ideological about it. It's perfectly fine not to veil. It's a beautiful tradition, but I wouldn't alienate women who don't want to veil. As an Eastern Rite Catholic, when I go to the Coptic Church, for example, that's part of the norm, the tradition. So every woman is veiling in that parish. So it doesn't polarize anybody because it's an organic part of the tradition of the liturgy. In the Roman Rite, that tradition has largely been lost. So sometimes the temptation is to use the veil as a weapon or a way to polarize or alienate. So I think your instinct is right in terms of, trying to make it attractive. But I would be careful because without that education and that formation, it can be seen as something like, oh, I'm more pious than you are. And that's simply not true.
Right. That sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. I mean, it is it's a tradition that was lost. And so there's always going to be, when a tradition is lost, there's always going to be, in a certain sense, if you want to, like I'm a Mass in the vernacular guy. I prefer the Mass in the vernacular, but when I go to the Latin Mass, I know that like the words that they're saying are the same words that, say, Therese of Lisieux heard when she went to Mass, or they're the same words. So there is a way in which these things do connect us to a tradition, and that's good. I don't have anything against it, but I don't understand Latin, so the Latin Mass is harder for me, and it's easier for me to go to the vernacular Mass. The number's 888-318-7884. There was 2 young women that veiled here at Catholic Answers for Mass every day, and I asked them one day why they veiled, and they both had the exact same answer. They both said, "Look at how beautiful this veil is." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," because actually, and they said, one of them said to me, women are more interested in beautiful things than men are. That's one of the things that we do better than men do. And I think that's actually true. I think, we don't like to say better or worse,
Right.
Between the two sexes, but there is an appreciation of wearing something beautiful that women have that men don't. Oh, that's why many wives have to tell us that's not what you're wearing.
The feminine, other expressions of the feminine genius. Yeah, if veiling makes you a saint and helps you pray, do it. But if you're doing it to be ideological or out of pride, don't. Only you know your own heart when it comes to that stuff. So did I tell you about the Magdala Center in Israel when I went this year?
No, tell me about the Magdala Center. I don't know about it.
Because you know how I love church documents, and that's like what we do.
Yeah.
The Magdala Center, where Mary Magdalene is from, I've never been here. I was in Israel, second time there. There is a church dedicated to the feminine genius in Magdala.
Really?
And you walk. Yeah, is that wild? Have you ever even heard of a church dedicated to like a papal document? I walk in, and in the rotunda of the church, in the town where Mary Magdalene is from, are the words of John Paul II. We thank the Holy Trinity for the mystery of woman.
Wow.
In Latin, in the church.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy that happened.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And there are translations of it in all languages. So wherever you're coming from all over the world on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, you can walk in and you can say, oh my gosh, these are the words of John Paul II, thanking the Holy Trinity for the mystery of woman.
That's so cool, too, because they only discovered Magdala a short time ago. It's not like we've known where it is for a long time. They were trying to build a retreat center, and they dug it up by accident.
Exactly, because the first time I went to Israel, I don't remember this at all. And the document's only from 1988. You know what I mean? In like church history, a papal document for a church and like a new one. Yeah. It was pretty impressive. Whoever was behind that knew about the feminine genius, obviously, and they knew what they were doing.
Well, is it, for you, is Mary Magdalene an important figure in that she's not the mother of Jesus? She's a woman who she just chose this. This is something where she chose to be his disciple and follower, and she appears to be a woman of means. She seems to have the money to help support him. Yeah. So he depends on her for his daily sustenance, so to speak, and seems perfectly comfortable and happy to depend on her. It seems to me that because she's a woman not related to Jesus in any way, but purely a disciple, she's an important figure for us.
She's huge. She's the first witness to the resurrection. She's the first evangelizer,
Right.
And she's the one that displays the feminine genius in the sense of when the apostles after the crucifixion are all kind of hiding and scared and, worried about politics. She's at the tomb and she's focused on Jesus, and she is the first witness to the resurrection and goes back and says, I've seen the Lord. And because of that, she in history has received the title, she's the apostle to the apostles. So,
that's pretty good.
And she's on the same liturgical, like her feast is celebrated as like an apostle, like one of the 12. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. 888-318-7884 is the number, 888-31-TRUTH. We're talking about the feminine genius with Simone Rizkallah, our friend. We got to take a very quick break. You got about 15 minutes left to talk with Simone if you'd like to talk about the feminine genius. Whether you agree with what Simone has to say or disagree with, whether you are a Catholic or not a Catholic, you are very welcome here. 888-318-7884.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
Wherever you are in the world, you can access the EWTN Global Catholic Network. It's everywhere. You can get EWTN's great Catholic programming on your car radio, at home on your TV, computer, or smart speaker. With EWTN's app, you can take EWTN everywhere on your phone or mobile device. If you want your news in print, turn to EWTN's paper of record, the National Catholic Register. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Who was the first Catholic in your family? Were they evangelized by a friend, a coworker, a stranger? Did you ever think that you could be that person that God uses to save a soul? And that soul could save their family, their grandchildren, and generations to come. At St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, we train, equip, and mobilize Catholic disciples to do the urgent work of evangelization. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization, streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. 888-318-7884 is the number. We're talking about the Church's understanding of the feminine genius. It's a great contribution that the Church has to make to the world, the true teaching about God's love for men as men and women as women, and that He has endowed us. Oh, look at that. I used the word endow. He has endowed us each with the gifts that come with he made us this way, I guess, is the easy way to say it, and he did it because he manifests himself in beauty. 888-318-7884 is the number. We got callers. I want to go to the callers, but tell me about the Endow Virtual Gala that's coming up.
Yes, it is happening tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you go to our website, endowgroups.org, you can just come with your champagne, your wine glass to our virtual gala, and you'll meet two of the founders and hear about the history of this movement and, get inspired about the feminine genius, learn more about the Endow Apostolate. We would love to have you register for that. So check out our events page.
Just go to the endowgroups.org.
Endowgroups.org, go to events, and then scroll down and register for that. We would love some new faces. This is our 20th anniversary year for Endow, and we're just so happy that our founders are coming, and they're going to talk about, what inspired this movement for women to cultivate their unique feminine genius through studying the teachings of the Church.
Praise God for it. Up next, Terrence is in Georgia. And that's the name Terrence. That's the male version. I don't know if you know this, of Teresa. So, yes.
I didn't know that.
Terrence, welcome. Go ahead with your question for Simone.
First of all, you both are so kind to allow me to speak. I didn't have so much a question as a kind of a clarification. I found this topic very dear to my heart.
Praise God.
I think back into the early 70s, when Vatican II was being rolled out and people were trying to understand. You guys are too young to try and understand what this all is. And the people that knew most about it were the nuns at the time. You know why? They were going to summer school.
Oh.
The documents.
Wow.
I mean, that's what they did. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry they didn't have more of a voice in that. I mean, they really were very well educated on the
Amazing.
development of Vatican II. But what I
Amazing.
want to speak about is I really think a gem in our church right now is the rise of feminine or women biblical scholars. And I think there's some superb ones.
Yes.
They are giving us great insights into the scriptures, the New Testament, the Old Testament, from a perspective of women who perceive the times that Jesus lived in and what specifically it was involved with Christ and from the feminine perspective. I think that we should actually support these people maybe more so than we do. I think they add so much to our church right now. And development of the Gospels and the Scriptures.
Well, let's get a response from Simone, and I'll come back to you,
Sure.
Terrence.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of of the biblical scholarship of Dr. Mary Healy. She has one on the Gospel of Matthew that's so interesting. And then, I can't remember her name. She teaches at St. Patrick's Seminary, Dr. Nina. I can't remember her last name, but
Dr.
she's
Nina,
done a lot of. I know
Mary Healy's on the Pontifical Biblical Commission.
Yeah.
But I'll look up Dr. Nina. But go ahead. You were saying.
No, just another great female biblical theologian type. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. There's more up and coming talent by way of women in terms of biblical scholarship. I also, he's a man, not a woman, but Mike Aquilina wrote a great book on women of the early church. It's a great book on the contributions of women in the beginnings of the church. So
Nina Hiraman?
Yes, that's her.
Okay.
That's her.
I knew it would come to me eventually if I'd used Google well enough. I have to agree with you. I think this is but we have a long tradition of women biblical scholars in the church. It goes well back into the medieval period, who often published in different ways than men didn't necessarily teach in universities, but that's not a brand new thing. But what's really new is in this modern university world, we've got superstar women biblical scholars.
Yeah. Oh, and very important to the founding of Endow is Sister Prudence Allen, who wrote these three volumes on the concept of woman, intellectual history on the idea of woman. I mean, who has time to read these three massive volumes? So I think the University of, Canadian University, maybe McGill University or Notre Dame, I can't remember, that asked her, hey, can you put these three, we can't teach from these three massive volumes on the concept of woman. Can you make a one book on the concept of woman that we can teach from out of university? And I think she just finished it.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
wonderful.
Yeah, so she's another one to look out for.
Terrence, thank you very much. Was that all satisfying to you?
Oh, sure. Anything that we can. My life proceeds to its ending soon. Not morbidly, but just a fact. But I will say that if I have my druthers, or say if I'm taking a class on the Acts of the Apostles, and I have two volumes in front of me, and one is written by a women biblical scholar, my bias is to go to that.
Well, Terrence, you have three of the greatest saints in the church as your namesake: Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Therese of Lisieux, and Saint Teresa of Calcutta. And I've thought the next pope should consider taking the name Terrence in honor of those three women. A Pope Terrence would be a great thing. But Terrence, thank you very, very much for the call. I'm going to go to Jennifer in South Dakota. Jennifer, thank you very much for the call. Go ahead with your question for Simone.
Well, it's not really a question. I would submit to you that Mary Magdalene was not the first person to see Jesus after his resurrection. Why do you think Mother Mary was not at the tomb with the other women?
Oh, see, there's some biblical interpretation that I don't know, I'm sure some theologian out there has considered. Mary Magdalene is given that traditional attribution, but perhaps you're right. Who's to say?
Well, certainly there's been several popes who have said they thought that Christ would have visited privately with his mother first before going to anyone else. But as far as the biblical evidence goes, it is Mary Magdalene's name who is given first. But certainly that doesn't preclude the possibility of Mary, the mother of Jesus, being there. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Liam is in Ohio. I'm only going quickly because, of course, everybody called at the end here. Liam in Ohio, thank you very much for the call. Liam, go ahead with your question for Simone.
All right, thank you. How do you see Catholic theology developing in the area of womanhood as we go forward in future years?
Well, it's very interesting. Well, there's two ways I would answer that. One, I love John Paul II's lines in Mulieris Dignitatem, and we thank the Holy Trinity for the mystery of woman. So there's something about the feminine genius that is always, as with all truths of the faith, going to remain a mystery. But then I do think that the work of Sister Prudence Allen is largely untapped. So I would, before we ask for necessarily more, I think we need to delve into her work, and also, of course, Edith Stein on women and her work on that as well, which has largely been addressed in John Paul II's theology of the body, but not exactly.
That's interesting how you answered that, Simone, because Terrence's point that it's wonderful that we have these women scholars. They really, like, even when you a woman scholar reading the first 3 chapters of Genesis, for example, insights come to women about what those chapters mean that don't occur to men. And I know we have women scholars who are plumbing those depths. I bet we're probably just right at the beginning of that, because it's only been recently that women were granted PhDs, for example.
Yeah, I mean, there's always work to be done in theology. I mean, Sai, I've talked to you about the sacrament of confirmation. I would love some theology, more theology on the sacrament of confirmation. I mean, we need people to answer the call to study theology, to be theologians in the proper sense, the science of theology, not just catechists. We definitely need a lot of catechists, but theology itself as a science.
Liam, did you have a view that you wanted to share about where you think this theology is going?
Not specifically, but it does seem to be somewhat stunted, at least as far as I've read. And I joked with someone the other day that there may be a downside to having celibate men do the overwhelming majority of your theology. So.
There may be a downside, but if there is, it can be compensated in various ways, because we don't have celibate men doing the majority of our theology anymore. We have, Liam, thank you very, very much. It is interesting to think about that. I'm so glad that Liam and Terrence called with those points, because we want to teach what the church teaches, but also there's so many more new horizons to be opened up in theology and in an understanding. And really, the caricature of Christianity is that it's anti-woman or wants to have a 1950s household or something. Like, nothing could be farther from the truth. The church is on a great adventure to find the will of God in how we live together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that I'm always a little bit sensitive to critiques about, celibate men doing them.
Oh, of course, she cut out right when she started it. She was going to defend celibate men, and then the technology cut her out. Our guest is Simone Rizkallah, and she's the director of program development at Endow Groups. They're connecting with her again. We'll have her back here in just a quick second, but you can find out about what Endow does. And if for example, if you are a woman who's in a parish where you've thought there could be more education for women and also more conversations about what it means to be a Catholic woman, what it means to be a Catholic woman at this time in history, Endow Groups is a wonderful group to check out and find out what they're doing. Endowgroups.org is where you go. Simone, the devil cut you off right when you were about to defend celibate men. He didn't want a woman defending celibate men. We're not having it. So, but you were saying you're a little bit sensitive to when people criticize celibate men.
I think we can always kind of attribute like the circumstances as to why things aren't as maybe fruitful or as we wish them to be. But I think the point is that the real root of that, the heart of that issue, is that we have a church that needs to cultivate a culture of personal vocation, so that whether you're celibate or not, female or not, that if you have an authentic call to theology, which is a rare call, that you would be able to pursue it, whatever your state in life. That's all I want to say.
Very good. Liam, thank you very much for the call. You've got a podcast series coming out on perhaps the greatest person of the modern era, the woman Therese of Lisieux. Tell us about the podcast.
Yes, Pius X called her the greatest saint of modern times, and Pius XI, who canonized her, said that she was the star of his pontificate. And John Paul II obviously made her a doctor of the church in 1997. This is her 150th birthday year. This is her 100th beatification year. Pope Francis is releasing an apostolic letter on her. So we have a podcast series on St. Therese with the Endow podcast starting on October 1st, her feast day. Everyone's welcome to check it out. We're doing it with our friends at the Avila Institute.
That's so you just go to endowgroups.org to find out about, or? or
just look on Apple or any of your social your podcasting platforms. The Endow Podcast.
The Endow Podcast. Simone Rizkala, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. It's always just so nice to get to visit with you. Thanks for being here with us today.
Likewise, Cy. Always a pleasure.
I will get a critique later from Simone that I wasn't funny enough. I didn't do enough jokes. That's what she does after the show. I get a text later that says, "Why weren't you funnier?" I tried, Simone. All right, coming right back with Ask a Priest with Father Sam Keys right after this on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Thanks so much for being here with us. Hey, if you've thought to yourself, I wish I could ask a Catholic priest that, this hour is for you. It's Ask a Priest. Any question that would be appropriate for a Catholic priest. It could be a theological or apologetics question, but it could be a more pastoral question, maybe something about your prayer life, about the sacraments, whatever it is, about marriage. You're very welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. Ask a priest, and Father Sam Keys is the priest that you can ask. And I find it odd that we have Father Sam Keys on for this show because he once tried to kill me and then abandoned me. And that is not a good combination in a priest. Father Sam Keys, welcome, I guess. Oh, did we lose him? Is he there? Oh my goodness! I thought we lost him right in the middle of me insulting him. Father Sam, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Did you hear my introduction of you?
I did.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and I was saying that I'm safely on the other side of the country now.
Just so you know, when I say that he tried to kill me and then abandoned us, it's a close to 90% certainty that he is the person who gave me COVID, and I did not handle COVID very well. And then he was our chaplain, and then he got a wonderful opportunity, and also he's a diocesan priest, so he does what his bishop tells him to do. And so he was transferred to Pennsylvania, where he is pastor. What's the parish that you're pastor of now, Father?
St. John the Baptist in Bridgeport, PA.
You look much older than when you were here. Is it hard to be a pastor? 888-318-7884 is the number. Now, I said you're part of a diocese. Is that the correct way to say what you are?
Yeah, basically. I mean, the Ordinariate is not technically a diocese, but it functions like a diocese in law.
Okay.
So it's like a non-geographical diocese.
Uh-huh.
It's yeah. It's always hard to explain that, but they call it a personal ordinariate, right? Because it attaches to persons as opposed to geographical locations.
I gotcha.
Right? So your kind of membership travels with you wherever you happen to go.
And it's not exclusive to people who have left the Anglican Church to come into the Catholic Church, but that is primarily who it's serving. And Father himself is a former Anglican priest, now a Catholic priest.
That's right. Yeah. And I think Pope Benedict very much intended it to have an evangelical mission, and so his hope, and I think our hope too, is that eventually, I mean, I'm sure we'll always have former Anglicans and so on, but hopefully we're growing by evangelism. By receiving people into the church, baptizing people, and so on. So your average parish is certainly a mix between people who are former Anglicans, people who have kind of come into the church for the first time, through one of our parishes, or those who have been kind of attracted to us for whatever other reason.
888-318-7884 is the number, 888-318-7884. Father is a Catholic priest, and if you've got a question for a Catholic priest, whether you are Catholic or not, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. While we're on the topic, and before I go to the phones, I will just say this. We have liturgy wars and liturgy upsets all over the church. Some people go to various rites. I have been to all kinds of rites of the Catholic Church. And as an English speaker, there is no rite I would rather be at than the one that you celebrate, Father, which I have no idea what the name of it is. It's not the Anglican use. So what is it called?
Well, yeah, I mean, so that would make sense. At least that's what historically some people have called it. But yeah, it's the divine worship form of the Roman Rite, which is also not a particularly descriptive title, because all forms of Catholic liturgy are divine worship. But
sure.
But that is the name of the missal that was promulgated under Pope Francis back some 5 or so years ago.
But if you like the beautiful use of the English language and a reverent celebration of the Eucharist, I don't think you can do better. So let's go to Joshua, who's in South Africa, watching on YouTube. We don't want to keep him waiting because he's in South Africa. Joshua, thank you for your call. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Hi. I was hoping to know, how do we simultaneously have free will in heaven but also prevented from sinning? doesn't that like jeopardize our free will? Why didn't God do that for us or Adam and Eve?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that to answer that, we need to understand what free will is in the classical kind of Catholic understanding of it. In the modern world, most people think of free will as simply the choice between contraries. So you can do this or that, therefore you have free will. The mainstream Catholic tradition, and this is actually kind of goes farther back to, I think, has roots in ancient, philosophy as well. But the mainstream Catholic tradition, especially represented by Thomas Aquinas and others like him, understands free will as not simply the choice between opposites, but rather it is the power to do good. A classic example that I've seen in moral theology textbooks is takes the scenario of a married man who, so imagine these two different scenarios. You've got a married man who is who's always thinking about being unfaithful to his wife. He never does. He never makes that choice, but he thinks about it a fair amount. It's a kind of constant temptation. There's a constant kind of like, hey, I have this choice that I can make, and I'm choosing the right thing, but I have the choice. So compare that to the married man who is so completely devoted to his wife that it never even occurs to him to have the option of being unfaithful to her. So that's the kind of question there is, which of those is more free? Well, a lot of people in the modern world would actually think, well, the first guy, because he's got the choice, right? Because freedom is just about choice. But actually, the Catholic moral tradition understands the second man to be more free, actually, because he has a greater power and a capacity for the good, which he has the opportunity to pursue there. So I think that's really the most important thing, that like freedom in the end is not just a kind of choice, it's a power to do good. And when we are, when our human nature is perfected, and fully participating in the beatific vision, it's sort of it's unimaginable that we would choose evil. So it's a greater power actually that we have, that we're not in fact tempted to choose evil at that point. So I hope that helps. That's how I would answer it. I mean, I'm sure that there's some other ways of thinking about it, but to me, the key thing there is understanding what classically Catholics understand by freedom.
Joshua?
That answers it generally, but then I would ask, so do we still have the option to sin or not?
I'm not... I mean, I think that generally the tradition says no. I know that there's a kind of classic way of putting it, of different stages of history where, like, right now we're sort of incapable of not sinning in many ways under the fall. And eventually we will be incapable of sinning. So I do think it would be an impossibility. But I don't know. There's probably more to nuance, and there may be people who disagree with that. So I don't want to kind of give that as a definitive answer. But I know that in fact there is no sin. Whether it is a theoretical possibility, there might be some kind of argument about that among the theologians. So that's not really a question I've encountered, to be honest.
Joshua, thank you so much. It really is delightful for us to get a call from South Africa. Thank you for listening there. And for, I know you figured out how to get that call to come through here in Southern California, and we're very grateful for it. We do have to take a break. We'll take that break. We'll be right back with more Ask a Priest on Catholic Answers Live.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
The most original and exclusive Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
One time somebody said to me, "Why don't you air these people?" And I said, "No, because I don't think they're Catholic." He says, "By what right do you have to say that?" I said, "I own the network."
Mother Angelica Live Classics. Every morning, 2 Eastern, on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Keller, your host. Our guest is Father Sam Keys. Father was a wonderful chaplain here at Catholic Answers, and he has a wonderful family who we always enjoyed when they were around as well. As a matter of fact, we like them better than we like him, but he's very, very. You're not offended by that, wouldn't you? Doesn't that say that a father's doing a great job?
I expect you to like my family.
Yeah.
I expect you to like them better than me.
Yeah, okay.
They're more likable.
They are very likable, but so are you, Father. It's not all right. It's not a competition. 888-318-7884 is the number. Ask a priest. If you've got a question for a Catholic priest, you can call, whether you're Catholic or not. We'll go to Ron in Indiana, listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Ron, go ahead with your question for Father.
Thanks for taking my question. Father, my question is a lot simpler than the South African question to answer. I have a question as to, my understanding is that you can only receive Jesus in the Eucharist twice in one day. And if that's correct, is Saturday night considered for that purpose Sunday? And so if you receive Saturday night and receive twice on Sunday, go to two different masses on Sunday as well as the Vigil Mass, have you received 3 times in one day? That's my question.
Okay, I've heard this question before. It's a natural one to arise. It comes really from a distinction in the liturgical calendar and the non-liturgical calendar, just the regular calendar. And the presumption of canon law, as I understand it, where it prescribes the number of times one can receive communion in a day, that pertains to a calendar day. So even though, like, in certain aspects of the liturgical calendar, there's some sort of Jewish aspects of it in which days are anticipated at sundown the day before, but that doesn't apply to that idea of how many times you can receive communion in a day. And in a similar way, it doesn't apply to priests, the number of times priests can say Mass in a day. So, for example, most priests can say Mass at, once or maybe even twice a day. Often, because of the shortage of priests, a priest is authorized by the bishop. He has the faculty to say up to 3 masses on Sundays and holy days of obligation. And so a priest could, in theory, celebrate 3 Sunday masses on Sunday and a vigil mass the night before. Because even though liturgically speaking, it is the Sunday Mass and it counts for the obligation or for the faithful, and it's the same liturgy, but it's a different day, on the calendar. So yeah, that's how it generally works. So yeah, you can. In fact,
yeah, that answers my question.
If you go to all those masses, the one kind of little caveat that the law gives is that it needs to be at a celebration of the Mass, right? So if you're receiving communion a second time, it shouldn't be at like a communion service presided over by a deacon, or if you've been to Mass and received communion, and then you go and visit your relative in the hospital, and somebody happens to be bringing them communion, you shouldn't receive at that moment, but you can receive at an actual celebration of the Mass.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the reason why I asked is that happened this weekend. I went to Vigil Mass, and I went to Sunday morning Mass, and then I went to a Spanish Mass in the afternoon. I got thinking today, I wonder if that was 3 times in one day, because I know the Vigil, qualifies for your Sunday obligation, but I didn't know the other, so you've answered my question.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Ron. Thanks very much. Here, I got a problem for you. If I already solved this problem, Father, but I want to throw it out to you because this is actually about to happen to me. You get on an airplane on a Saturday night, and you fly overnight, and you land in New Zealand, and it's Monday morning when you get to New Zealand. You never experienced Sunday. So now what do you do for Mass?
I think the world just exploded there. I don't know.
I know that's actually what's going to happen to me, though. I'm leaving on Saturday night. I land on
that. Why would you do that? No.
Well, that's what they scheduled me for. I didn't get a choice in the matter. No, but there's Saturday
really
Vigil Mass.
That is a really interesting question. Yeah, I mean, it's. Gosh, I don't know how this applies to time zones. I mean, I suppose you could be traveling through time zones constantly and never actually hit a Sunday.
Yeah.
That would be. I think this is where we want to think in terms of not the letter but the spirit.
Spirit of law, right?
the law, which is that a normal week has a Sunday and a day of the Lord's Day, and
right.
so even if you have missed it. In terms of your actual experience of the calendar because of time zones, you probably need to make an effort to observe the Lord's Day in some way,
Yeah.
Okay. But if, but I mean, the fact is, if you're on a plane for 20 million hours,
well, it's only 13 hours, but you cross the date line, so you never see Sunday. You never experience Sunday. You just go straight from Saturday to Monday.
Yeah, that's a weird. I know. That's an interesting question. Yeah.
But well, here it's easy for me because the plane doesn't leave until 10 p.m., so I can go to the 5 p.m. Vigil Mass. But when I first realized that I'm not just going to skip Sunday Mass. I'm going to skip Sunday. I didn't know what to do. Ron, thanks very much for the call. Let's go to Eric in Idaho, listening on 102.3 FM. Eric, go ahead with your question for Father.
Hello. My brother and my sister-in-law are married only by the civil marriage, and they're divorcing now. But my question is if they can already go to confession and have Holy Communion if they're not divorced yet.
Okay. I think I understand the situation rightly. Being separated from one's spouse is not in itself a state of mortal sin, which makes one, which cuts one off from the sacramental life, right? So, the issue that's often faced by Catholics, the kind of the big one that kind of gets is often an issue, it's not Catholics who are divorced; it's Catholics who are divorced and remarried. And who are living in a state which purports to be marriage, but is not marriage in the eyes of the Church, and that's the kind of objective state of sin which prevents one from accessing the sacraments unless one has, indicated, one's repentance, and there are things you can do to kind of start towards the path of reconciliation there, but simply being separated from one's spouse, while it may be a cause, that's something that varies, right? I mean, there may be, in fact, good reasons to be separated from one's spouse. If you have an abusive situation or something where somebody really needs to, get away, that's not a sin. it's so just objectively speaking, right? There may be all sorts of situational things that make those actions sinful. So I hope that helps to say that, you know, if you simply have a couple who is separating, the kind of question of whether they're divorced in civil terms, it doesn't matter. Now, I'm sorry if maybe I missed an important point at the beginning, though. You were talking about, I think you said that they weren't
married in the church.
So I somehow I mentally jumped over that point. That's an important one. So I don't know why I went to the other situation that I just outlined. Okay, so you've got a couple who's not married in the eyes of the church. So the question is then, how? I think with any situation, and this is what, you know, sometimes happens in the confessional. If somebody is in an invalid marriage and they want to come back to the sacraments because, you know, they know that they're living in an objective situation of sin, all they have to do is go to confession and say, you know, here's my situation, and the priest is going to want to know, okay, can you commit to not, you know, not living in a situation of sin anymore? In other words, can you is there a reasonable, legitimate attempt to exit that situation, to maybe, you know, sometimes somebody can't immediately move out, but you can say, you know, we're going to live as brother and sister. And in those cases, yeah, the person can come back to the sacraments. So the kind of whether they're married or divorced in the eyes of the state is really irrelevant to whether or not they can approach the sacraments in a state of grace.
Does that help you, Erica?
Yeah, and I'm sorry that I kind of made it more confusing. That
he gave me COVID, so I mean it's constant problems with him. So did that help though?
Clarify.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify, because my brother is actually victim of abuse, and he's getting divorced, and so he can actually go and then just start confessing and going to Holy Communion, right?
He needs to go to confession, but yeah, the fact that he as long as he's, you know, making a full confession, that's really all that's needed.
Erica, thank you. Thanks very, very much for the call. Do hope that was helpful. All the lines are full. We have Father Sam Keys with us. It's Ask a Priest this hour on Catholic Answers Live. Kelly's in Albany, New York. She's listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Kelly, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Yes. Is it possible, first of all, thank you for taking my call. Is it possible that during adoration, like in a chapel type situation, that Satan could also be there in the room somewhere?
That's interesting. So I'm probably not going to give you a very satisfactory answer, because this, you know, kind of the area of you know, demonology and kind of spiritual warfare is not really a specialty of mine. But I would say, in principle, I think it's perfectly possible for a devil or a you know, one of the fallen angels, the demons, to be present in some sense. You know, just like the angels, they can be all over the place. Like there's this entire invisible world, which in a sense is kind of under and alongside, you know, the visible world. That, you know, I think that there's much more there than we could ever be aware of on the visible level. So I think yes. However, I think it's fair to say that in a particular place like that, where the Blessed Sacrament is exposed, I think there would be some pretty severe limitations on demonic activity. just by nature of the place and the sanctity of what's happening. But again, I don't want to think in kind of magical terms. In other words, I think what we're dealing with is individual wills, and so it's kind of hard to speak about what every demon can and can't do in a given situation. That's something that's not kind of my expertise, and there may be some better sources that Cy or someone else can point out there. But yeah.
Well, did that make sense to you what Father said though, Kelly?
Well, it actually does. I think there was a specific circumstance where a lot of evil was happening in the overall building where this chapel was, and I just felt like it made it more open to that happening.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Well, let's just put it this way. There are a lot of evil things happened in the direct presence of our Lord during his life. So I think often the holy brings out and highlights the reality and the presence of evil in the world. So often they're right alongside one another.
Kelly, thank you. You can probably hear the music. We've got to take a quick break. There's 2 lines open, 888-318-7884. Want to get right to the core of Christ's saving message? Want a roadmap for living the life Christ calls you to? It's time to look again at the Beatitudes. In his new book, Heart of the Gospel, How the Beatitudes Show Us God's Plan for Happiness, Father Sebastian Walsh demonstrates compellingly how these 8 declarations make up the foundation, the essence, and the final goal of Jesus' teaching. Heart of the Gospel illuminates the scriptural passages from which we get the Beatitudes, explains the significance of their wording, their order, and their timing in Jesus' ministry. And it draws out edifying parallels and connections with salvation history and the lives of the saints. Most importantly, Father Walsh offers wise counsel from his own work as a priest and teacher to help you live the Beatitudes in your own life. Order your copy of Heart of the Gospel today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
If you're not a Bible scholar, the full message of how the Sunday Mass readings fit together can be tough to comprehend. Apologist Carlo Broussard is here to help. Join Carlo every Friday for the Sunday Catholic Word podcast. In each episode, he unpacks the scripture readings for that Sunday and brings them all together so you can better understand and defend the faith. Visit SundayCatholicWord.com to subscribe. That's SundayCatholicWord.com.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Got a deal going on over at shop.catholic.com. If you like deals, I don't know how you are with deals, but we've got more than 500 items that have been produced by Catholic Answers, whether they're audio or whether they are video or books or whatever. And they're all on sale right now, 30% off over at shop.catholic.com if you use the promo code St. Michael, St. Michael. And I know that Jack was trying to communicate something to me from the booth, because I don't know what that was. Jack, we're going to work on your signaling a little bit. I'm reading the ad, and Jack is doing a pantomime of something. Was there? It seemed like there might have been an Eskimo and a snowman involved. No? Okay, that was just me. That's how I read it. Okay, whatever. 888-318-7884 is the number here. Father Sam Keys is our guest, and it's Ask a Priest here at Catholic Answers. Up next, what line am I going? Jack got me flustered now. I'm going to Mark in North Dakota, right? All right. Mark in North Dakota listening on 1370 AM. Hi, Mark. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm curious about.
Wait, is this the best phone you've got? Or can you talk directly into it, Mark?
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's good. That's very good. Yes, thank you.
All right, apologize for that. I understand the concept of the Pope being the Bishop of Rome. My question is, as a practical matter, is the Holy Father also has a collateral duty? Is he running the Diocese of Rome as its bishop, or was that a symbolic title?
Oh, Mark, we have never had this question all the time I've been here. This is a great question. Father?
The answer is yes.
No, it's an either-or question. You can't say yes to that.
Okay, I'll say more. Yes, he is actually the Bishop of Rome. Yes, he is actually in charge of the Diocese of Rome. And now, how exactly he exercises that governance over the Diocese of Rome has varied, I think, very, very widely over the centuries. I think, pretty obviously in the early centuries, the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, was much more involved in the kind of day-to-day running and ministry in the Church of Rome. In the modern world, I think often there has been a bishop who was appointed by the Pope as a kind of vicar for the Diocese of Rome, who runs it. So somebody who's a member of the papal, curia, who has a particular responsibility for the Diocese of Rome. Now, interestingly, Pope Francis has, I'll just mention this, and I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I know that he hasn't actually taken a little bit more of a direct active hand in the running of the diocese than most of his recent predecessors, and I think that. This is just kind of speculation, but it seems like he has at a few different times wanted to kind of model, in the Diocese of Rome, the things that he wants to see diocesan bishops do elsewhere. I don't know that that's been a sort of explicitly stated intention, but he has gone on record and kind of been noted, in the Catholic press and so on, for actually just taking more part in some of the kind of regular, meetings and kind of decision making for the diocese. But in general, the answer is yes. But because of his ministry for the Universal Church, the Pope doesn't tend to spend most of his day-to-day life focused on ministries locally. He has to think more about the wider church.
Does that help you, Mark?
I kind of had a suspicion that was how it worked. I went on a website and I didn't have a lot of time, and I was not able to translate the Italian.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things I was kind of surprised at is that it is actually called a Diocese of Rome. I would think it would be an archdiocese, but that's just probably a whole different thing about the church governance that we could probably spend a lot of time on.
That's so funny. I've never thought about that. That Rome is not called an archdiocese.
No, it's true. It's just the Diocese of Rome. Yeah.
Mark, what an interesting call. Thanks very much. It's also interesting that the question of whether the Pope is actually the Bishop of Rome or that's just symbolic title is a great question, because in a certain way, like we have a cardinal here in San Diego, and he has what's called a titular see, but he's not really an Italian bishop. That is actually more symbolic than real, that he has that see in Rome, which makes him part of the College of Cardinals. 888-318-7884. That was so fascinating what I just said that I thought that Father would respond to it, and he was like, "That's your problem, dude. That is your problem. That whole thing was your problem." 888.
I'm so used to being with you in person in the studio, and
it is weird, huh?
And I miss it. I'm just like, it's just sadness to have this.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you are afflicted with this difficulty. Jerry is in Austin, Texas, listening on Catholic.com. Jerry, you're very welcome here. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Thank you, Father. I have a question. It's centered around this little girl who's not baptized. She's about 10. Parents aren't together. mom and her family have no faith, and the father and his family are devout Catholics. My friend is the grandmother of the little girl, and she's very worried because the little girl's not baptized. They've talked to the priest. The priest wants wants both parents to be in on this baptism, but the mom doesn't want anything to do with it. Is there anything that I can give to the grandmother, a book, or maybe some questions on how to help raise the kid? I hate to say covertly, but maybe covertly, to have some faith. Again, the grandmother's very worried about this little girl.
So is the father, you said that the father's family was Catholic? Is the father not practicing?
Yeah, the father's practicing.
Okay.
But the priest has said he wants both of them to desire baptism before he does it.
Oh, so who does the child
the father
live?
and his mom.
And do the parents live together? I mean, with the child?
No.
Okay.
I think it was kind of an accident, and they're not together.
Okay. So who has the custody of the child?
They both. They
Okay.
bounce back and forth.
So they kind of share. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well. I don't have I mean, I don't know. Cy might have a recommendation for a book. But I will just say that in law, at least, and I know that different dioceses have maybe different kind of pastoral guidelines on this kind of thing. The ideal is, of course, that both parents consent to the baptism. But I have the law in front of me. Canon 868 says, for an infant to be baptized licitly, the parents, or at least one of them, or the person who legitimately takes their place, must consent. So in other words, it is not required in law that both parents consent. The law assumes that you need at least one parent, ideally both, but at least one parent to consent. Now the second requirement is that there must be a founded hope that the infant will be brought up in the Catholic religion. If such hope is altogether lacking, the baptism is to be delayed. Okay, and it may be that that's where the priest he's thinking about that, but because you don't want to, if there's for example, you have a situation where both parents are just total, kind of pagans, and you've got a kind of faithful, grandparent or something, and the grandparent wants them to be baptized, but the parents, they don't really care one way or the other. That's not a great situation because there's not really a reasonable hope that the child is going to be brought up in the faith. You want to give that baptism a chance to kind of grow into maturity. So again, I don't know that situation, but I would say I would kind of try to get the child baptized if she's got at least one parent who is going to make a reasonable effort of raising her in the faith. That's really what you need. Again, I don't want to kind of I don't know what the motivations of the priest who said otherwise, but to me, the church generally needs to err on the side of giving the sacraments when it comes to this kind of situation. We don't want to withhold baptism out of a kind of over scrupulosity about it. But that's my opinion, at least.
Okay.
Yeah, I like putting baptism aside. Is there something she can do? Any ideas to help push her into going in a direction of having faith? Because the other side doesn't want to even consider it.
Well, are you talking about
sense? There are questions like where does life come from?
Well, how to inculcate faith in the child? I mean, the child needs to be brought to church. I mean, let's stick with the basics. Of bringing the child, to church and having the parent who is a Catholic be very obvious and clear about their beliefs and their practice, and to live a life in accordance with the teaching of the church. that's the most powerful thing, and if that's absent, then nothing you tell the child is gonna stick, because they're looking, they're watching, and they want to connect what you say with what you do.
Yeah, that really helps.
Very good, Jerry. Thank you very much for the call. We got to take a break. We'll be back with more Ask a Priest with Father Sam Keys right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
It's all about the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Hi friends, Janet Williams here. Join me every Wednesday on Women of Grace Live as I welcome New Age researcher and blogger for Women of Grace, Sue Brinkman. Sue and I will be talking about all the wacky things that could distract you from your faith. Psychics, yoga, Reiki, crystals, acupuncture, Ouija boards, tarot cards, and astral traveling are just a few of the stranger things we discuss. That's why we call it Wacky Wednesday. So join us every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
The Catechism defines evangelization as the proclamation of Christ and His gospel by word and the testimony of life. But what does that look like in real life? It looks like St. Paul street evangelists out in the public square sharing the good news. We're a Catholic nonprofit that starts conversations by handing out free sacramentals. Then we employ our method of listen, befriend, proclaim, and invite. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Still sort of settling back in after all the excitement and the big adrenaline rush of the Catholic Answers Conference. The annual conference was on God, and it went very, very well. I loved Scott Hahn's talk. Sister Regina Marie Gorman. Did you hear that talk, Zach? That was otherworldly, wasn't it? Floriani sang, the musical group Floriani. They sang the Our Father in Aramaic, and a beautiful arrangement. It was, man, it's a great few days. Next year, I'm kind of looking forward to the conference next year because it's on the parables and sayings of Jesus, and Jesus is very accessible. I feel like I'm not saying that. I don't know. It's just you can. I guess there's it's not just a theological topic, but it's a spiritual topic as well. And there's a lot of spiritual good, I think, that'll come from talking about the parables and sayings of Jesus. So, but that's a long way off. I just noticed that that's the topic for next year and looking good. But thanks to everybody who came out. And I'm sorry for those who weren't able to, but the talks will get out on the YouTubes at some point. Probably early next year, maybe something like that. Okay. Next call, it's Ask a Priest this hour, by the way, on Catholic Answers Live. There's a couple lines open, 888-318-7884. Our guest is Father Sam Keys. And now we have an anonymous caller from Pennsylvania. We're awful glad you're here, anonymous caller. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Good evening. Father Keys, welcome to the area.
Thank you.
Bridgeport. And my question concerns the Eucharistic prayers. All four of the Eucharistic prayers say that the blood will be poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. I often wondered why it didn't say it would be poured out for you and for all for the forgiveness of sins.
That's okay. Yeah, so, just so we're clear, the words that are there in the Eucharistic prayers, and you're right, that is... that is part of what we call the institution narrative, the words of institution, which are in all of the authorized Eucharistic prayers in the Roman Rite. It's a direct quotation from our Lord in Scripture. I'm looking, I think it's Matthew 26:28, I'm sure there's, I'm actually looking, I have in front of me because I was curious about this. about what kind of the fathers say about this in general. So, there seems to be some different interpretation of it. One of them I just noticed here in one of the kind of medieval glosses on that verse, it says that Christ did this to be said that the words "with you" may refer to the greater part of them and not necessarily the whole. And he's speaking especially there about Judas, who, I think, why doesn't it say all? I mean, I'm just going to kind of make a speculative comment here. It's not to imply that Christ's blood is somehow insufficient for all. In fact, we get various references in the New Testament which clearly attest to that. I think especially like in the Epistle to the Hebrews, where there's this kind of really exalted language about the sacrifice of Christ, and it's kind of once for all. I mean, in terms of time, but also in terms of its all sufficiency. So that's clearly not what's meant here. It may be that simply what is meant is that not all will actually partake of it. That it, and this would in a way be, I think, the kind of most common Catholic reading on that, which is just that God's grace is available to all, but not all partake of it. The fact is, Christ's blood is sufficient for all, but not all actually receive of the benefits of that. And so yeah, I think that would be my reading on it. But I'm sure that there's more to it. I'm actually kind of curious myself, but now's not the time for it. But I'm sure I would not be surprised, because that's a passage in the Gospels themselves. I'm sure there's been a lot of reflection of that, in the fathers and in the tradition. So it's something where, if you're really interested in that, I encourage you to look a little bit more, because I'm sure that you'll find some interesting interpretation.
But I will leave it there, because we are nearing the end and still have lots and lots of lines full. So
Okay.
I hope that was helpful to you, Anonymous. Zach is here in California, listening on 95.7 FM. Zach, thank you for the call. Go ahead with your question for Father.
And still, hey, so one of my coworkers asked me. She told me. She said, "There's nothing in the Bible that says Sunday is the new Sabbath." And since there's like no biblical mandate for Sunday sacredness, then we shouldn't be going to church on Sunday. And so I was like, and I went to my study group, and no one has been able to show me nothing. So I said, let me go to professionals.
Okay, that sounds great. Do you happen to know what religion she is? The woman who said this?
She's Pentecostal, Baptist, something like that.
I'm
okay. Not sure.
I would
it's
have
non-denominational.
Okay.
But it came. The name. She goes to a Vineyard Church, so I don't know what denomination that is.
Okay, Father. Why do we worship on Sunday?
Yeah. So we worship on Sunday primarily because it's the day of the resurrection. So this is one of those things where. And I was just looking on Catholic.com, and I would just encourage you too, if you go to Catholic.com and you just type in Sunday Sabbath, you're going to pull up a lot of different things, and you might find some people who are much smarter than me, especially on some of the kind of biblical questions. To my knowledge, there's not a sort of clear, scripture alone kind of warrant for, aside from just the fact of the resurrection. Although you do see, I think, references to the Lord's Day in the New Testament, and that means Sunday, right? And so it's not kind of spelled out clearly in the New Testament in the sense of St. Paul saying, "Oh, by the way, we all understand very clearly that the Sabbath is now Sunday." It's I think very strongly implied throughout with the kind of references to the Lord's Day and the day of as the day of resurrection. But the kind of broader, apart from the New Testament itself, we have just very kind of clear records of the early church talking about how the kind of Old Testament law applying to the Sabbath has been kind of fully realized on Sunday. And this gets a little bit complicated because the early church often speaks using these kind of mysterious kind of language. In other words, the Sabbath is the seventh day, whereas like Sunday, they talk about Sunday as being the first day of the week, but it's also the eighth day, right? So there's this kind of really common theme that you get in the Fathers of the eighth day, which is the kind of day of resurrection. So, creation has 7 days, but then there's this kind of perfection that's added to that in the eighth day, which is then celebrated on the first day. So they'll talk about it being the first day and the eighth day, and so a lot of those kind of understandings of the Lord's Day as a kind of specific day set apart in the week to honor the Lord. Those the early church makes a very kind of conscious decision to observe that on Sunday as the day of resurrection, and. How you justify that, again, I would recommend you look at some of the things that some of the authors and apologists at Catholic Answers have said, because I know that there's a lot of good stuff. But I think that to me, the kind of heart of the matter, it does come down to questions of authority, like so many kind of Protestant Catholic, points of divergence, in that. We understand that the apostles and the apostolic church are speaking with the Lord's own authority. And so when they recognize that all the kind of meaning of the Sabbath is now fully made manifest, fully realized, then fully perfected, right, in the Lord's Day, the celebration of Sunday, the day of resurrection, they really speak with the Lord's own authority there. That's not just a kind of arbitrary decision of the early church. Whereas if you have a kind of Reformation idea of Scripture alone, you get into other kind of problems. But then you have to make some other decisions about how to interpret some of the kind of New Testament stuff, and that's where again there's a lot of division even among Protestants, because you have groups like most famously, of course, the Seventh-day Adventists, who advocate for maintaining and kind of absolute hold on the Sabbath as the seventh day, whereas most of the Protestant churches understand. I think following the early church's witness that that the Lord's Day, the day of resurrection, is now the new Sabbath. I hope that helps. But maybe you have further questions.
We only have a minute left. Do you want to follow that up, or did that help you?
No, that was helpful. But I just didn't know if there was like a scripture I can go to, or something that's an official, something that says I can direct.
Oh yeah,
to.
Right. Yeah, there are, like in the first letter to the Corinthians, in the Acts of the Apostles, and in Luke's Gospel, I think, all references that you would want to use. But you could just look on our website, Catholic.com, and find some of the articles on Sunday. Just ask, just put in the search bar at Catholic.com, why do Catholics worship on Sunday? And you'll get a good number of articles, some of which are refuting the Seventh-day Adventists, but not all of them. So Father alluded to all the scripture that says they gathered on the first day of the week. They broke there's reference to the breaking of the bread on the first day of the week, and all of that. But all of those would be in those articles that you would get there. So Zach, that will do it for us. We will leave it for there. Just leave it there. And Father, Thank you very much for putting up with my nonsense, but also for a very fine hour. May we have your blessing before we go?
Yes. The peace that passeth all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God and of His Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost be amongst you and remain with you always. Amen.
What's your parish there, Father?
St. John the Baptist.
St. John the Baptist. Well, they got a good pastor. I hope that you and your family are settling in, and that the parish is getting used to you as the pastor as well, and you're all becoming friends.
Yeah, we're having a great time.
Very good. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing, right here, Catholic Answers Live.